Hello there, 7th graders. Miss Ray-Budman here with some quick instructions on how you can choose to do the revised Indo-European group project. You are free to do the one that's on Odysseyware if you would like to produce a Venn diagram, draw your own map, and do your own summary writing. But I wanted to give you an option to do something that I believe will be a little quicker and perhaps a little easier, and I think is a little more kind of more modern in terms of its technology. And that's just putting together your research in a set of slides. So I've made one. I'm going to just show it to you, walk you through each of the slides so you can kind of have an idea as to what you would need to do if you choose to do the revised project. So the first thing you need to do is choose 2 people. There's a list of which Indo-European groups you can pick. It's in the instructions. I chose 2 groups that are not on the list because obviously I knew you guys were going to pick those and do the research, and I didn't want to steal your people. So I chose 2 groups of people that are not in your research, but are also examples of early people that migrated, and so we're going to use those as an example. So the first slide, you're going to make 6 slides total, either on Google Slides or on PowerPoint, and the first of the slide is a title slide. You're just going to tell me who your people are. So you'll see here, mine are the early Italic people, also known as the Etruscans, and then the West Germanic people who eventually became the Saxons. Those are 2 different groups of people who migrated in Europe, and so those are the ones I selected. You'll put your groups on the first slide plus your name. Then you'll make a second slide, and on your second slide, you're going to tell us about your first group of people. So my first group were the Italic people. Notice that I have here short statements, not big long sentences, just something nice and short that is based on my research that tells us where the people were from, where they came into, a little bit about their culture, language, religion, whatever you can find that would be interesting to share about who these people were, where they came from, and how they've impacted the development of that part of the world. So you'll notice my Etruscan people, or the early Italic people, invented the toga, which of course became known for being Greek and Roman, but was actually around before that. And they had an influence on the development of the Latin language, which became eventually the family group that brought modern European languages. So those would be examples of things that you would want to put in your research. Short and sweet, nothing in long sentences or paragraphs. You're going to include 2 to 3 pictures. I put 4 just because I wanted to show you some examples, but you only need 2 to 3 pictures. They should be pictures that go along with things that you've chosen to write about in your research, and they should have a little caption that tells us what it is. All right, so you can find those from the picture itself. It's not a citation, but you should put an explanation. Or, as you'll see in the next slide, you could use an arrow if you don't want to include a caption, if it happens to be something that's on the slide itself. So a slide on your first group, then you'll make another slide. This is my slide on the West Germanic people, and you'll see here the West Germanic people are an example of another group from Europe. I've included a map as well as other photos. And this time, instead of I did put one caption here, but instead of putting other captions, I used arrows. So because this picture happened to go with this example, I just drew an arrow, so I didn't have to write it again. But again, I put my research on my slide in short statements, talking about where the West Germanic people came from, what influence they had in this region of Europe and their language, and a little bit about what I could find from their particular culture. And so that would be my third slide. And again, I have at least 2 or 3 pictures. The fourth slide is going to be a map. So you need to go and onto Google Images, find a blank map of Europe. If you want one with country names on it because you don't know where the countries are, that's fine. All right, but you don't want it to have a lot of other things on it because you need to put arrows on it. So I found this blank map of Europe. I made it the background of the entire slide, and then I just used insert shape, and I used little, curved lines to make arrows to show where my 2 groups migrated from and to. And then you'll see I color coded them over here, as the green are the West Germanic people, and then the red were the italic people. So you're going to have one slide with that kind of map. The fifth slide is going to be the only one that will be written in sentences, and it should be one paragraph or about 4 to 5 sentences. And you're going to look for ways in which your people may have similarities. And this might be a struggle depending on the groups that you find and that you're researching, but you want to look for ways they maybe have influenced, or do they have a similar economy or trade? How have they influenced different parts of the world? That could be a similarity. So my two groups both influenced language quite a bit in Europe. A lot of the languages we speak today throughout the world come from either the early Italic or the West Germanic people. I also found a common trait of religion. Both of my early people were polytheistic and had a lot of mythology about where religion played a role in their development, and they both were eventually invaded by the Romans, and so that was something else that they had in common. So you're going to have one slide where you will write one paragraph just telling us a little bit about similarities. And then the last slide is just going to be your URLs. You do not need to write this in a formal MLA or APA format. You just need to put your links in there for your research. It does not need to have picture links, just the research places that you went to find information about your people. So this is an example of the revised version. You do not have to do the revised version. If you would prefer to do what is already on Odysseyware, you can do that. If you do the revised version, you do need to upload this to Odysseyware. So if you make Google Slides, you need to download them as a PPTX file and then upload them into Odysseyware. If you make it in PowerPoint, you need to upload the PowerPoint into Odysseyware. So please make sure you still submit and upload it into Odysseyware. Do not share it with me. All right, you need to actually put it into Odysseyware so that I'll be able to open it up from there and I'll grade it. It means you won't be having 3 things uploaded. That's okay. Just upload your PowerPoint for question number 1. And then I'll take care of sorting out how it gets graded, etc. All right, so if you guys have questions this week, give me a shout. Some of you have this due later this week. Some of you have this due the beginning of next week. I will tell you, if you look ahead a little bit, we have a unit test next week. So you might want to work on this project some this week if you can, because then you won't have to do a project and a test both in the same week next week. So let me know if you have questions. Feel free to come into office hours, but hopefully the instructions between the written one and the video are hopefully helpful. Take care, guys. Have a great week, and hopefully I get a chance to talk to a few of you this week at office hours.